Chapter 30. The Heavenly Brick Secret Passage. Now that the secret passage was open, I took a moment to breathe a sigh of relief and shone my flashlight down into it. A staircase constructed of black stone descended diagonally into the darkness, beyond the limited reach of the flashlight's beam. I waved over the 5 people waiting at the temple entrance. They all marveled at the effectiveness of my divining for golden nodes technique upon seeing the open passage. As the day had already passed noon, I humbly suggested that everyone should pack up, travel light, and have some water and dry food outside the temple before entering the passage, since we didn't know how far it would lead and we needed to be well prepared. While eating dry food, Suddy Pung curiously asked me how I had managed to find the secret passage with such precision. I explained. The arrangement of the 16 large stone pillars suggests the use of the ancient giant gate formation. This type of mechanism is usually applied to passageways and gates, with numerology derived from the low shoe square and the arrangement of celestial bodies. The mysteries here are profound, too complex to fully explain. After a brief rest, I led the descent into the temple's secret passage. Just underneath the entrance, we found a stone lever that could be used to pry open the flagstone from below. The intricacies of the mechanism, still functional after nearly 2,000 years, were highly unusual, and if invented by the Jingjue Queen, it would signify her as a once-in-a-millennium genius. Initially worried about possible triggers within the passageway, we proceeded with extreme caution, keeping our distance from one another as we descended. When we reached the end of the stone steps, the way ahead opened into a corridor measuring about 5 meters wide and 3 meters high. Surrounded no longer by the black stones, the corridor was built with celestial bricks, distinctive to the western regions. These rectangular pale yellow bricks, composed of rammed earth, cow dung, and cool sand, were dry, solid, and durable enough to resist cracking over time. The ceiling was constructed in a rounded arch, and the walls adorned with bizarre and vivid murals. Dominating the mural images were multitudes of eyes, big and small, open and closed, with some detailed down to the iris, eyelids, and lashes. Considering the Jingjue viewed the eye as a totem, this corridor, connecting the temple and decorated with so many eyes, was likely only accessible by the clergy and rulers like the queen. It might have been rarely used since its construction. The corridor's environment was incredibly insular and lacked ventilation, yet the murals on the walls retained their vibrant colors without a hint of peeling, eliciting great excitement from Professor Chen and the others. Professor Chen recounted that back in the early 19th century, when foreign explorers found the relics of ancient cities in Xinjiang, they too uncovered many murals, almost all of religious themes. Unfortunately, at that time, they were not properly protected, and many were looted and taken abroad. It was unexpected to find such well-preserved murals here, especially since these were from Jingjue, the oldest and most mysterious of the 36 kingdoms of the western regions, a discovery that could astonish the whole world. As Professor Chen spoke, I thought about the legend indicating the queen was a demon. The ancient city was laden with secrets and oddities. If demons truly existed, perhaps we might uncover some clues in these murals. Forewarning is power, enabling preparedness for any potential encounter. I began to carefully examine the paintings with my flashlight. However, none of the murals in the corridor depicted the Jingjue Queen. Instead, they portrayed various rituals, and some even showed a jade eye emitting light and causing a black hole to appear in the sky above, out of which a giant, eye-like orb descended. Others depicted the emergence of numerous black serpents from such an orb, attacking several bound slaves who writhed in agony. Additional scenes showed black mountains crawling with serpents, with all manner of beasts bowing down to these creatures. Some of these scenarios were familiar to us, and seeing them reflected in the murals further validated Professor Chen's inferences. The serpents, marked by black orbs on their heads, had indeed been revered by the Jingjue people as guardian beasts. They knew how to summon and command them, and often made human sacrifices to them. Astonishingly, after being buried beneath the desert sands for a millennium, these bizarre serpents still existed in our world. As we continued our journey through the corridor, we stopped in front of the last mural depicting a massive cavern with a spiral staircase coiling down along the cave's walls. Shirley Yang asked Professor Chen if there could be any connection between this depicted cavern and the origin of the Ghost Cave people's name. Professor Chen speculated that the colossal subterranean hole shown in the mural couldn't have been excavated by human hands and wondered if it might be the actual ghost hole. I recalled hearing stories about the ghost cave people originating from underground and initially thought the tales to be mere legend. Now, confronted by the murals, which matched some phenomena we had witnessed firsthand, I grew suspicious. Perhaps there really was such a vast cave deep within Jingjue City. Fatty jested that if the hole indeed ran through the earth, one could casually jump in and end up in the United States, obviating the need for air travel. Shirley Yang ignored his banter and proposed to Professor Chen that the giant eye stone figures might represent the true appearance of the ghost cave people. If they had indeed come from a dark underground world, it would explain their reverence for eyes. Professor Chen acknowledged Shirley Yang's theory and added that the cavern might represent the otherworldly domain often mentioned in ghost cave lore, possibly the so-called hyperspace. It could be a corporeal entity. The ancient ghost cave people, having discovered this immense hole and unable to descend to its depths or explain its origin, may have regarded it as a sacred wonder and worshipped it in the hopes of enhancing their own vision to see into its mysterious reaches. Those who claimed they could see the world at the bottom of the hole were revered and often became rulers or priests, with their power symbolically linked to their eyes. Impressed by Professor Chen's conjecture, Fatty gave him a thumbs up, praising his ability to deduce so much from a single painting, suggesting he could dazzle a crowd with his interpretations. Professor Chen, not in the mood for levity, casually responded that these were just subjective theories, and they needed to verify the existence of the cavern themselves. Seeing is believing, after all. Whenever they talk about underground caves, it reminds me of the incident beneath the Kunlun Mountains where we encountered the 9-layered demon tower and I lost several comrades. Since then, I've developed a certain fear of deep underground caverns and am always concerned about the safety of the archaeology team. If we hadn't needed to find a water source in the underground palace, I might have insisted on taking everyone back now that significant discoveries had been made in the desert. We wouldn't need to venture into that cave. I shared my apprehensions with Professor Chen, suggesting that they were people of status in society and there was no need to take unnecessary risks. Once we found the water source within the underground palace, it would be time to return. Having found Jingjue, we had essentially fulfilled our mission, and it will be suffice to write an assessment report for the authorities and leave the rest to the government. Professor Chen shook his head without responding. His lifelong quest to unravel the mysteries of the ghost cave civilization wouldn't allow him to agree, especially since Shirley Yang also firmly believed her father's expedition had reached Jingjue. Neither of them would give up until they had found the truth, and there was no persuading them otherwise. Reluctantly, I continued forward with the group, having said all I could and done all I could. Whatever happened next, I would have no regrets. The corridor was not unusually long, and the end of it did not feature steps, only a lone stone pillar and no apparent doorway. Could this be a mere dead end, created solely for the ceremonial murals? Fatty looked around then turned to me. Old who? Do you have any more tricks up your sleeve? If not, maybe it's time for some explosives. I retorted, must you always resort to force? Think first. I suspect the secret door might be related to this solitary stone pillar. Standing alone on the corridor floor, built from celestial bricks, this pillar was significantly smaller than the 16 pillars in the temple, yet it shared their design, and its hexagonal base was adorned with carvings, with one side left blank, facing the narrow wall at the corridor's end. Now, an idea came to me. This must be the tale of the passing through 16 dragons formation. I asked Fatty to assist me again in applying the quelling dragon decree from the 16 characters of Feng Shui's secret technique, opposite to the seeking dragon commandment, turning the hexagonal stone base beneath the pillar.